My guest today is something of a legend in the Trails Guide community. He's walked the length of Africa, has over 17,000 logged hours, has walked over 35,000 kilometres, and also served as a paratrooper. And all that after once being told that he would never walk again. Bruce Lawson, welcome to Tales Less Told.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just to put everything into context, let's start at the beginning and let's talk about the accident, because what you've achieved is incredible, but in the context of the accident that you suffered when you were a child, it seems doubly incredible. So can you tell us what happened?
Sure. As a young kid, I grew up in Pietermaritzburg, and we lived in a house, World's View at the time, which was one of the first houses in that suburb in Pietermaritzburg, which is high up on a hill just outside of the town. And one day coming into town, my sister, myself and my older brother, who was driving, and lost control of the vehicle coming round a corner at the top of the hill, and the vehicle rolled to the bottom. I was thrown out over some rocks, the vehicle rolled over me and everything, crushed my skull, and also broke my pelvis quite badly. I was unconscious for quite a long period of time with very, very little hope of actually surviving at all. And miraculously I came through that, and then it was the whole problems with my hips, shattered pelvis and everything like that.
Were you prepubescent at this stage? How old were you?
Yes, I was only 3.5 years old.
Okay.
So I was a youngster.
Mm.
I was a very small child. And through great care, hospital care, doctor care, and then obviously family love and attention, I was back on my feet in pretty much no time, which nobody could believe, because I was only given about a 10% chance of walking there. And due to all the financial implications and everything like that, my father took a promotion, moving to the Lowveld, moving to Nelspruit, to pay for all the finances and everything that we had incurred in the accident. Coming to Nelspruit, I was diagnosed with a very disabling hip joint infection, which is known as Perthes disease, which affects the growth plate in the head of the femur. And this, at the time, there are not many cures for it. I have no idea if that's improved now or not. But anyway, I was put in plaster of Paris from my hips to my ankles, my legs at a 45-degree angle with a bar between my knees and between my ankles, which my brothers thought was great because they could carry me around with that. But I was like that for 2 years, which, as a young kid, you don't really think about it. I was just different to anybody else.
How were you mobile? Were you mobile in any way?
I was pretty mobile. I had a wheelchair,
Mm-hmm.
so I was put on a wheelchair, and I could move around by scraping myself on my bum on the floor like this, which, due to the friction, used to wear the plaster of Paris out, which created much havoc amongst the family and the doctors and the nurses. But anyway, I got through that. I was given a 5% chance of recovering from that and being able to walk again. And the whole process of going through the plaster of Paris into the wheelchair and then finally being let loose to be able to walk again was about a 4.5 year process. So I never really started walking again until I was about 8 years old. And went to a special school in Nelspruit for that. Well, it wasn't a special needs school, it was just a school that could handle my special needs. And yeah, here I am.
Did you remember feeling as though you missed out of playing with the kids in the schoolyard?
I never really did, I've been thinking about that quite a bit lately. I never really thought I was missing out. I just had something that they didn't have. They couldn't do what I could do in my wheelchair, but I couldn't run around on the sports field like them.
Okay.
But once I started running around and being mobile on my feet and that, it didn't take me a long time to catch up to where all the other kids were. And at the end of my primary school career, I was playing provincial soccer. So it didn't take me long to actually catch up. I was never fast. I don't think I was any good. I just thought that everybody felt sorry for me, so they put me in the team. But yeah, I eventually landed up doing that, and I played rugby at school, and so never really bothered me.
Well, you must have been fit because you spent some time as a paratrooper
Yeah.
in the South African Defence Force, which is
Yeah.
obviously very hard to get into.
Going into the military was quite an interesting story just on its own, simply because we were conscripts then, so it was national service, coming into national service, and you go through this medical, which I'm sure with any conscription is extremely difficult to fail. But you get given different categories of what you can do according to your fitness. You know, are you able, or have you got some disability or something like that? So I pretty much had two choices. I could not tell them about my medical history, and I could go through as, you know, a frontline soldier if I wanted to, or I could tell them about it and be desk bound. And well, I became a paratrooper, so clearly I chose one of them.
So some time in the military. I wonder if the hardships that you endured as a youngster, do you think that played a part in giving you some grit to prosper in the military?
I think so. And also one of the things that stands out to me about why I went the route I did when I was in the army was my brothers telling me, because they had been through the military process a lot earlier than I'd gone, and they just said to me, listen, you've got to go there for 2 years. You've got absolutely no choice. Make the most of it. So that's what I did, and I was called up to the medics, which, hearing the rumours around town and everything, it was like, you don't really want to go to the medics because they never do anything. They run around, they're basically called bedpan mechanics, because you run around changing bedpans in hospitals and stuff like that. And I just thought, nah, that's not really what I want to do, but this is the hand I've been dealt with. And so I volunteered for operational medical orderly, which I got into, and then we did 6 months of medical orderly training, infantry training, and then training as a paramedic, moving up to advanced paramedic in military medicine. And from there I decided, well, you know, why stop now? Let's see if I can go the whole special forces route. So I volunteered. There was a very, very small unit that had just been started up a couple of years before I got there, called 7 Medical Battalion, and I did selection for 7 Medical Battalion and got in and went through all their training and everything. So yeah, I think that simple fact that my brother said make the most of it, and then I also think the grit of, you know, why give up? You know, it's not that difficult. Other people are doing it, why can't we?
Yeah.
So it kind of, I suppose, gave me the grit to get through, as you said.
Sure. And you saw some service?
Yeah, we went up to Angola.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it was the best time of my life, but you know, it was something we went through, something we trained for. But you know, I was right at the end of the whole Bush War, and everything came to an end in '89, and that, yeah, I wasn't up there for any major length of time.
Were you happy to leave the military after that period?
I never really wanted to leave the military. I wanted to stay in, and I was going to use the military as a platform to study, because my grades at school were never that great, because I always wanted to be outside. I never wanted to be inside. So studying, you know, wasn't really part of my physical makeup. So my grades were not good enough to get into university. However, if you went through your 2 years military service and you proved yourself, you would get an exemption of going into university after that. And the military would sponsor you through that, but you would just have to pay back whatever time you spent studying. You would have to work that back to the military afterwards, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. However, I got caught up in being a soldier and I forgot to do the studying. So, which was fine. It got me to go to other places and do other things that other people wouldn't do. I mean, I went down to Marion and to Gough Island, which are 2 sub-Antarctic islands with the South African National Antarctic Expeditions. I went down as the medical officer, the medical orderly for the teams. Spent 18 months on Marion Island in the southern Indian Ocean, and then was back for 3-4 months, and then went down to Gough Island and spent a further 14 months down there on Gough Island.
So they're doing scientific research down there?
Doing scientific research down there, mostly weather. So most of the weather forecasts, we used balloons up twice a day, so they had meteorologists down there, but then there were also ornithologists down there and zoologists as well, doing research on the seals, on the penguins, on all the petrels, the prions, all the birds that were down there as well. So it was hell of a interesting. It was, well, for me it was just a phenomenal experience.
So let's just to get a sense of how remote that place is, and the fact that you're the medic there. So if something goes wrong, you've got to deal with it with the tools that you have at hand.
Absolutely.
And then hopefully it's not too serious.
Hopefully it's not too serious. We in the training, in the build up to get down to the islands, we went through a 6-month training period of all sorts of things: firefighting, cooking, because we were the chefs, so we went down there. Everything was sent down with us. So all our food supplies and everything, all our grog, the whole works went down with us for the year. There was no resupply in the middle. There were no ships that came down and dropped stuff off for us or anything like that. And so I had a fully equipped surgical practice down there that I was the dentist as well. So I had a fully equipped dental surgery, and then I had a medical surgery with x-ray equipment as well. So that was my side of the training before going down, was pretty intensive on that side of it, on the medical front of it. But at the end of the day, luckily for me, the biggest injuries were hangovers. So, and I never found the cure for that. So,
Tell us if you do. Okay, so that was still within the confines, I guess, of the broader government work.
Yes.
And then what happened after the?
So when I came out, that was in 1992, 91, 92, 92, I came out or back from Gough Island, and in my transition period of kind of coming from a remote destination, trying to fit back into society, I was very much an outdoor person, and used to spend as much time outdoors as possible and away from people and that. And it was rock climbing in a place called Waterval Boven, and had a pretty nasty fall and fractured some vertebrae in my back. Got compression fractures in a couple of vertebrae and broke some transverse sections. So there I found myself back in hospital for another 6 weeks in traction, being told that, if I walked upright again, I would probably never, or I was advised never to walk with a backpack again. Which, when I was told this, my parents my mother just giggled, and she said to the doctor, she said, "Oh shit, have you told him? Because he doesn't listen." And I'm lying there flat with weights on my neck and my feet. But anyway, that didn't really work that well. So I was up and about. A couple of months later, going through the physio and everything like that, and then I did one of my first solar expeditions. I walked from Namibia to Cape Town to raise funds for a remedial preschool in White River. They were not government subsidized at the time, and they needed funds to keep going. So I decided to do something. I was in between doing anything, so I said I'd walk from Namibia to Cape Town, and got people to sponsor me per kilometer, and all those people who said, "Ugh, you'll never be able to do it," I said, "Well, put money where your mouth is, sponsor me per kilometer, and then if I don't make it, you don't have to pay me that much." And eventually, I went through, I'm not sure how much money I raised, but I raised enough to keep them going for another couple of years until government subsidy came through. So that was my first one. It wasn't necessarily a huge walk. It felt it at the time when I was doing it. It was 1,200 kilometers, and it took me just over 40 days. It was almost 41 days or something. And I was met in Cape Town by the mayor of Cape Town at the time, and a friend of mine from here, Sarah Morgan. She's now Sarah McSmith. She flew down to Cape Town to meet me when I finished, which which was very nice. So that was the first of the
Did
walking.
you kind of take a coastal route?
Yes, I walked pretty much down the N7. So I came from Arnhemsvlei, which is the border with Namibia, and I walked from there to Uppington, in Uppington through Pofadder to Springbok, and then Springbok kind of straight down the N7 to Cape Town.
I've been down that route. It's hot,
Yeah,
depending on the time
Yeah.
of year, but
and pretty remote. I mean, and we're talking 1992, so it was a lot remoter back then.
sure.
So very good.
Do you remember, what was your sense being alone for that long? Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I loved every second of it, and I actually started walking slower towards the end because I was getting towards the finish. As much as I wanted to finish it, I also didn't want it to finish. Just having spent 28 months on islands on your own, it's quite nice. So it was a bit of I didn't want it to finish. So it was a very strange feeling of being on your own for so long and dealing with your own kind of hardships, to come back into society, and you kind of got to deal with people. And so it was me not really wanting to fit back in, but also not stepping out completely.
Well, look, I was going to save that question for a bit later, but since you've touched on it, we'll deal with it now.
Sure.
Because look, that was 91, right?
Yeah.
And so some years later now, you've spent a lot of time in the wilderness and the bush, by yourself or with very small groups. So is there a readjustment process for you when you come back into civilization or a big city, or how do you feel when you come into a big city?
Yeah, there definitely is I call it the re-entry. To come from being in a total wilderness environment to re-enter into society takes a lot of adjustment. I always thought it would get easier the more you do it, but it's actually the inverse to that. It becomes harder to re-enter every time you do it, and you just need your space. What I do to re-enter after wilderness trails and wilderness experience is I have a set routine that I go through. That once I've been through this whole process, I can re-enter then. And one of the first things, which is it's an offshoot of the military, is what you do when you come back from an operation. You sort your rifle out, you sort your equipment out, and then you sort yourself out, in that order every time. So whenever I come out of the bush, clean my rifle, fix it up, sort it out, put it away, and then I do my equipment. So whatever I've used, I will wash, I will clean, I will get everything sorted out, hang it out to dry, get everything sorted out, put my clothes in the washing machine, and then by the time I get to the last thing, the first thing is dry. So then I roll it up and pack it up and put it all back in the backpack again, so that if I get called tonight to do a trail tomorrow, everything is ready. And then I go for my shower and I sort myself out, and then I'll sit down, sit with my wife and have a drink with her and everything. And she knows that. She just lets me get on with that process.
Yep.
And it's pretty much, it's an afternoon, and by the next morning, back to as normal as I can get, I suppose.
What about the city though?
City, I find difficult. I must be totally honest with you. City is I find it a little bit alien. Even Hoedspruit, believe it or not. I just battle to sleep. It takes me 3, 4, 5 days to actually get into a good sleep pattern, just because I think there's so much going on. There's just noise. You can hear traffic in the background, you hear cars, you can hear people, you can hear this, you can hear that, and then you've got 4 walls around you. And it just takes a while to settle in. Going to cities, going to Nelspruit, which is my hometown, I find it difficult. People are always worried. They say, when you're in the bush, aren't you nervous? Aren't you scared? Aren't animals going to attack you and eat you and everything like that? I'm like, whoa, no. You go live in the city, we're living behind cages. We're putting ourselves in jail every single day when we go home. open the gate by remote, close the gate, put the alarms on, close the door. We're locking ourselves in a jail. When I'm out there, I've got total freedom. Animals don't want to hurt you. The inverse. People want to hurt you. Animals don't. So it's a different way of looking at it. So to answer your questions, I find cities pretty difficult. Pretty difficult. They have some very, very nice attractions that I love to go to the city, to movies on a big screen, theatre, live music. Love it. But 2-3 days and then I'm ready to come back home.
We do live in an increasingly urbanised society where
Yes.
technology is everywhere. You literally can't escape it. Most people have very little experience of the countryside, let alone wilderness. What does wilderness mean to you, and why is it important for humanity?
What does wilderness mean to me? To answer that question in one word, everything. Wilderness to me it's given me everything that I've got. It's given me an amazing wife, an unbelievable family. I've got a house on the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. I still don't know how I've got that, but we've got a house. It's just given me everything. And wilderness to me, if there was no wilderness, if there was nowhere that my soul could connect to, I'm not sure what kind of person I'd be. It's a very difficult question to answer, but wilderness, every person on the planet has wilderness inside them. We've come from, whether you are religious or scientific, it doesn't really matter. Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days to find himself. If you come from the scientific background, we've evolved from the ape to where we are now. Wilderness is there. Both sides of that coin, you've got wilderness in you. And that wilderness, everybody has in them. When people come to the bush, come on a safari, go to a luxury lodge. Why are you doing that? You're doing that because the wilderness inside you wants to connect with something out there. And that, the more you come, the more you do it, the deeper you want to get. You're going to come on safari, and then you're going to go to, not such a flash place, but let's go to a place that might do a morning walk. Let's try a morning walk. And then, wow, why don't we go on, stay in a wilderness lodge where we can do walking every morning, every afternoon. And then come to Local Trails Company and do a primitive trail. And we go live in the bush, and no tents, no nothing, pack in, pack out, connecting with wilderness in that sort of way. And every person on the planet needs to be able to have that wilderness experience for their soul to connect to that. Otherwise, we become very aggressive people. We just become aggressive and abrasive with each other, and we live in a community. And if we can't release that wilderness that we have, even if it's just to go sit in a dry riverbed and put your feet in the sand and just go, whew, it's beautiful. Get energy from the earth. We've just got no outlet for that, and everything, it becomes difficult. So wilderness to me is everything. Wilderness to humanity is extremely important, extremely important. First world countries, wilderness areas are preserved fanatically. In Africa, not so much, because, we are preserving them as fanatically as we can, but not the entire population is doing that, because you've got people living from hand to mouth who are using wilderness to survive. So there's a huge conflict there. But in first world countries, wilderness, it's a different mindset in the preservation of it. But if we can connect people to the wilderness that they have within, they will think differently about wilderness areas and conserve them for all the right reasons.
When you take guests out on a primitive trail, do they struggle to connect with wilderness?
Yes, they do. And no, they don't. So to answer that is, everybody comes out there with with a preconceived idea of expectations of what they want to get out of it. They want to see animals, they want to do this, they want to do that, they want to do this. They don't realize why they're going there. And the way for them to connect, people are a bit adverse of taking off their watch, leaving their cell phone behind, not taking a camera. They can't do that. And so you've got to get people to be in the now. Right now counts, not back then and not then, not in front, now. So if you can get people into the now, which they do on their own, after 3 days people are like, whoa, don't need any of this other stuff. Then they're hooked, then they're connected. So people actually do it on their own. You just sometimes have to be a little bit forceful about, you know, having a camera there. People say, why can't we have a camera? I take my phone for my camera. But your phone has got your time, it's got your messages, it's got everything. All of those things are disconnecting you from the present, the now, where you need to be. And when people connect with the now, they go, wow, you hear that black-headed oriole. It's just wow. They might not know what it is, but suddenly, wow, there's an amazing sound out there. You know, and you can hear the animals moving in the leaves, and you can hear the insects next to you. And suddenly everything is like, wow, because they're in the now. Taking a photo, why are you taking it? So you can look at it later. So you're not in the present. You're projecting that to the future. Take it now. Blink your eyes. There's your camera shutter. Those are the pictures that you'll remember. So you have to physically disconnect people from that for them to connect. And often you just leave them and they do that on their own. You see them day 1, photos everywhere. Day 2, photos. Day 3, they're like, whew, don't really need to take pictures. Day 4, don't even know where my phone is. And they do that all on their own, because that's the power of the wilderness connection that they gain from being out there.
So you've found it's a transitional change. It's not like there's a moment where the penny drops for them.
Yeah, no, there's no bang. That's when it's happened, or like you say, the penny drops. It's a transitional thing, and I'm sure there is some explanation as into why it takes 3 days. But 3 days seems to be where it all happens. 3 days you're kind of at your most uncomfortable. And that is because all those anxieties and fears and emotions and everything inside you suddenly manifest themselves on day 3. And you're like, somebody says good morning to you, and you're like, you know, that's on day 3. The end of the day, you're like, whoa. And then you see the line of people moving through the bush. You kind of just start moving as one. You connect with each other. You connect with the environment, and you're just one big part of this whole system that we have out here.
They begin to fit in with nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they fit in with each other, and then they fit into nature. So it's a wilderness experience isn't necessarily just me and the wilderness. It's me and you and the wilderness, because we are part of the wilderness. As much as we might be loners or individuals or anything like that, we are a community. We connect with each other in nature, and that happens on its own. When you're out there, people do it on their own.
Is there a subconscious realization that they need to get along to survive almost? Was that stretching it too far?
No, absolutely. I think that is, you've hit the nail on the head. It's a subconscious thing. It's not really a conscious thing. I can't come out and say, right, I've got to get on with you so that I can connect with nature. It's not at all. Because I'll come out and I'll go, But then after 3 days, it's like, wow, man, we're experiencing the same thing. We're almost in the same realm of being in this environment. So it is very much a subconscious connection. But once you've connected, wow, it's amazing.
Do you see people's character change over those days?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You people come in there. Everybody is time driven and technology driven, and we've got set goals that we have to achieve and everything like that. And everybody comes to the bush because they've got to achieve this, they've got to achieve that, they've got to achieve this. So everybody's driven like, you know, this is my opinion. That's what. And then after 3-4 days, people are like, let's listen, and now we can communicate. And that's when people start communicating, and so much so that we'll be walking along, and without saying anything, I start thinking about something. I go, wow, look at that, and then everybody's looking at it without me even saying anything. You know, people are connecting. We're connecting subconsciously on the same thing, and that only happens after a bit of time of being out there and being one with the environment.
You mentioned before that people don't take their cameras out there, or they're not encouraged to. How do you encourage them to retain their memories, or what they've experienced? Is it something that you do around the campfire in the evening?
Yes, there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of talking that goes in, and people just connecting with themselves. Out there's silent times, there's solitude moments, time for reflection, and just thinking differently. Just getting out there, journaling is a very good medium. And then one of the most powerful wilderness experiences that people can do is the watch around the fire at night, because we don't sleep in tents, so we're sleeping under the stars. If I'm on watch, I have responsibility over all of you. If I fall asleep and don't do my watch, one of you might get eaten. So I'm responsible for all of you, and that takes a lot of trust for people to be, you know, you wake up half an hour and you watch everybody. By night 3, everybody's sleeping. When it's not their watch, fast asleep. No one's worried about a thing, because we trust you now. We know you're going to look after us. So that's the one aspect of it. The other aspect is that when you're standing, you're on watch, it's you, darkness, which seems to be everybody's fear, is the dark, and the fire. And there's nothing else you can do. You can't have your torch on, you can't be reading a book, you can't do anything like that, because that's going to make you night blind, and you're not going to concentrate. You're going to concentrate on what you're doing here. There's no technology to take you out of the moment, so you are there in that moment with whatever's going on in your head. And that is an unbelievably powerful medium. People sort out their own problems on their own. And it's fantastic, and with all the feedback that we get given after these primitive and wilderness trails, the highlight of the trip, doesn't matter what encounter you have out there, the highlight of the trip is always the night watch. When we're on our own, we're looking at the sky, amazing stars, listening to the sounds, and being on our own. It's amazing. There's nowhere else that you can actually be on your own, because you stay at home on your own. You've got a TV, you've got a book, you've got everything to distract you from inside your head. Make it dark with a little fire. It's you and only you. And then that's when you sort stuff out.
Is everyone a good guest? Or rather, do they become good guests?
I'm not sure what a good guest is. Everyone is a guest.
Yeah.
And you've put me on the spot here.
I have, and I don't want you to to start slagging off any of the people that are clients. I wouldn't have dreamed of you doing that. But what makes a good group to take out?
What makes a good group? A good group is that group. Well, for me, it's the group that gels with each other. They get on with each other. There's good humor, and they're willing to take advice on how to connect. Although we don't say it like, if we take your phone away, you'll be able to connect. We say, why do you need your phone? Do you need your phone? What are you taking photos for? Okay, so I've got a camera. I'll take photos and send them to you. Why don't you let me have your phone? I'll take it with me. You can look at it every day. You can see where I've got it. It'll always be there. But you don't actually need it. You take your watch off. Wow, people are difficult to do that. The nice guests or the good guests are those people who go, absolutely, yeah. You know, I want to try something new, so let's do it. That's really great. But It's hard to say who's a good guest and who's not a good guest. I suppose the best guests are the ones who pay their bills. Those are the nicest guests you have.
Sure.
But everybody out there is good, and people might come and they're a little bit grumpy or gruff or this or that. 3 days, they're sorted there.
In the cities, in a lot of life, you know, the things which matter, money, power, influence, or these are perceived to matter, what matters in the bush?
Staying alive is the most important one, but suddenly when you're out there you realize that you can have lots of money. It's not going to help you out there. It's what you've got on your back that's going to help you survive. So the most important things for survival that you need when you go on a wilderness trail, that you have to plan to take with you, and if you don't have it, is going to be water. You need water. You need the food that you're going to eat, and then we need fire. Other than that, we don't really need anything. So what people come and what they have in their backpacks is a metaphor for the baggage that they actually carry around in their lives. So the bigger the backpack and the heavier the backpack tends to be the more baggage that they're actually carrying around with them in their life. And you see some people come with a really, really small backpack with just essentials. They'll come with a very thin sleeping mat, sleeping bag, you know, a small little pot to cook their food in, minimal amount of food, happy. They can be anywhere, anytime. Other people come with these huge packs. They don't use half of it. And then at the end you say, well, there we go. You know, what we're doing with and everything we deal with in our lives, you can put in your backpack and look at the good time you've had over these 3, 4, 5 days, and how much of that extra baggage did you need to have that good time. And they said, no, this was actually weighing us down. There we go.
Nature encompasses so much. You have birds, animals of every description, reptiles, big game, there's flora, there's the rivers, the geological structures. It's an immense topic or series of topics, and I would imagine that a lot of your guests have particular interests. They want to see the predators, they want to see birds and that kind of thing. How do you manage to balance up the different needs of your clients?
The way I manage that at the moment is not really to manage it at all. Nature will provide what we need to see and when we need to see it. Okay, that sounds a bit way out there, but that if I had to try to cater for every person's need while I was out there, I would never be able to connect with nature myself. So I hear what they're saying, and it's good to have those expectations because then you can manage them. So somebody comes along and they say they really want to see leopard, so you manage that expectation and you say, well, we've got a pretty good chance of seeing it. However, the chances of us seeing it are pretty slim, simply because they are shy and elusive. But when we out there at night, we're going to hear them calling, or have a good chance of hearing them calling. We'll see their tracks. We can actually trail them. Whether we see them or not doesn't really matter. And people kind of give you that look, it doesn't really matter. 2 days into it, they're going, just knowing that these animals are here is enough. We don't have to actually physically see them. And that's when you know that, okay, people are starting to get it now. Instead of us being in that Jurassic Park where we inside looking out, we are actually part of the whole picture. We are part of the environment.
It's that concept of shared space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've always thought it interesting that, you know, you're in a 4-wheel drive on a game drive and there are lions right there doing their thing. But as soon as you step outside of that skin of that vehicle, you're part of the game.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, the rules are different.
The rules are completely different.
Yeah.
And you're doing this for days on end
Yeah.
in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find myself a lot more comfortable being out there on foot encountering the animals than I do in the vehicle, because in the vehicle they don't see us as humans, so their reaction to us is very, very different. So that space, that personal space between you and the animal is diminished. Can't say how much, but by a hell of a lot. I mean, you can get 10 meters from a pride of lions eating on a kill. You try to do that on foot and you're still 200 meters away, and those animals are going to be looking at you. You come any closer, they're going to run away, and then they're going to come back and protect their kill, and then, you know, so that personal space is very, very different. So you're getting the animal's natural reactions from a bigger distance, which is, to me, is a lot safer than that, oh, you're fine, you can come closer because you're on a vehicle, then all of a sudden, oh shit, there's a human there, and now I must react. Then you, as the guide, you've got absolutely no reaction time. So it's better to see the animal's natural reactions to you as a human from a bigger distance, so that you've got a better reaction time. You can read the situation, you can move, you can, whatever you need to do, you can do that, deal with it.
Now we've begun to talk about interacting with animals. In your bio, you have over 4,500 meaningful encounters with the Big Five. What's the definition of a meaningful encounter?
A meaningful encounter is it's not necessarily just seeing the animal, doing the approach and leaving, but it's actually connecting with that animal. We are also animals, so it's just having that connection between the two of you or the group and that animal or that herd of animals, and there is that interaction where there's that, okay, we know you're there, we know you here, what are we going to do, how are we going to do this? 4,500 sounds like a hell of a lot, and yeah, I suppose it is a lot. Why I count these things, I don't really know, but I suppose that's part of my tuition and the boxes we have to tick as guides to get all the levels of guiding that we need to get. You've got to count encounters, you've got to count hours and all of this, so it is something we do. However, if you take that 4,500 into context of how many hours I've actually spent out there, it's not a lot. Meaningful encounters is that connection with that other being out there, and that is very impressive. I wouldn't say that all 4,500 of those are meaningful encounters. They're all meaningful to me because wow, I'm seeing the animal. But of that 4,500 encounters that I've had, 2.5, maybe 3,000 are those actual meaningful connect encounters. The rest are, I see you maneuver, get into position, show your guess, leave, and off you go. So the meaningful encounters are probably half of that.
Have you had any terrifying encounters?
I have. I once met this American woman. Oh no, sorry, with animals.
Bit slow there.
Yeah, I've had a few terrifying encounters. Out of 4,500 you're going to, and also having spent 12 years of my life actually training students to approach animals, the Big Five, and retreat, teaching them how to do the approaches and retreats and how to respond to different animals' signals and stuff like that. Yes, I have had. I've been put down by an elephant, so I've been knocked off my feet by an elephant, and my backup actually shot the elephant off me. Huge injury to my shoulder, which I recovered from, and all of that. And then on another occasion, I had to shoot an elephant. So those are the only two animals that, both elephants unfortunately, that I've had to destroy while out there on foot. It's not what we want to do. Make no mistake, I don't want to get into that position, and I don't want any of my students from the past or anybody in the future to be in that position where they have to shoot an animal one day because of it charging them. However, the reality of what we do is that it might happen. So that is something that we have to take into account. So yeah, terrifying ones, yeah, it happens a lot. But you have to use that fear and control that fear to control the situation. Because if we are terrified and we show we're terrified, that energy gets passed down the line, and when everybody's terrified, yeah, you've got this huge negative energy with this big positive energy of the animal coming towards you, and it's like a positive and negative magnet. It just does that. So if you're positive, they're positive, and that positive energy is equal, you're kind of at a stalemate, and you can see off whatever is happening. But as soon as you are not positive and there's a kink in your armor, or you're terrified and you're showing it, that animal is going to see it, and then they got the upper hand, and then it's hard to recover from a situation like that. Every now and again, you have those animals that don't read that book or abide by that rule, and that is when things can get very hairy. Yeah, but it is the nature of what we do. It's the way it is.
So when you reflect on those two instances with the elephants, you know, if you were to have that time again, was there anything that you could have done differently, or do you think not?
You know, first of all, the guilt of having shot an animal. That I'm not a hunter in any way. I mean, I don't condone it. There's certain forms of hunting I don't enjoy at all. But having to shoot a cow, a female elephant, it's not pleasant. I mean, it's you destroying such a magnificent being. And being humans, we're always going, what did we do wrong? Rather than maybe this elephant actually chose me to end her life. Think of it in a different way. Who knows? So reflecting back on it, is there anything else I would have done? Would I have not been there? No, I don't think so. I would have been there. Would I have done something different? I would dearly have liked to have not have shot the animal, and I would really have liked not to been hurt myself. However, if I had to do it different, yeah, I probably would have shot her a bit sooner.
I just want to go back to that thing that you mentioned a moment ago about the animal potentially choosing you to end her life. Do you think that's a real potential, a possibility?
Who knows? I have no idea, but that is something a very good friend of mine said to me when I was battling with this whole thing of why? You're always asking that question, why was it me? Why did I have to shoot? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? He just said to me, why don't you look at it as if that elephant was actually choosing you? And suddenly I was, whoa, okay, that puts a whole nother spin on it, and it makes it a little bit easier, or made it a little bit easier for me to come to terms with actually what happened. So who knows? I mean, I can't think like an elephant. Yeah, I've no idea, but it definitely made a difference on me and how I perceived the whole thing and how I could come back from that incident.
Okay. Does nature continue to surprise you?
Absolutely. Every single day, and the more I learn about it, the less I know. Yeah, you can go out there and you can learn whatever you like about this weeping booby and about that tambuti, the scientific names. You can know how they grow, where the energies go up and down and all of that. However, the interaction and the energy you get from everything out there every single day is just something different. It is just phenomenal. And the more I learn, honestly, the less I know. about what is going on out there, which I find so humbling about being out there, because you go through these guiding qualifications, you get pumped with this, pumped with that, pumped with this, and then you scientists, you get their doctorates and professorships and all of that. Not knocking any of that, because the science is extremely important behind everything. We just don't know enough about how everything connects with everything else to be able to say we are gurus out there. I don't think we are. We are part of the whole living cycle and the process. So yeah, nature surprises me every day, and it's brilliant, because if I was bored, well, I don't know what else I would do.
Do you have any anecdotes along those lines where you've come across something, or you've seen some animals interact which is not according to the playbook at all?
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen a few times, well, now I've got to think, a few times where you see interactions between different species of animals that you think, wow, you know, how is that? How is that possible? Why are they doing that? Once came across a young buffalo calf that was stuck in the mud, getting into the dry season. That obviously all of these animals, whole herd, had gone down to drink, and there was this young buffalo calf that went in to drink and obviously got stuck in the mud, and that thick black mud, once your foot goes in and you try to pull it out, you tend to have to go in afterwards to get your shoe, because you pull your foot out of your shoe. That mud, and this young calf was just stuck there, and the herd was a little way off. Another herd of elephants had come down, and two of these cow elephants came up to this calf and actually pulled it out of the mud. So put his trunk underneath, got a chunk underneath here and a chunk underneath the back, and just, you know, kind of shoved it and moved it to the side and kicked it, well, not kicked it, but pushed it with their feet and got it to the side. And eventually this little calf kind of stood up and ran off to the herd and joined the herd, and the herd moved off. And I sat there and I thought, wow, there's different species doing this. I mean, we battle to do it to each other as humans, but now you've got different species doing it to each other, and it's like, whoa, you know, stuff like that. Just,
Do you think it was a maternal thing? Or just a...
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Or
I'm
we're
sure it
herbivores, let's stay strong or something? Or
I have no idea. To try put our human emotions and thoughts on it, it's a difficult one to do, but just seeing those animals do it, it was amazing. And I do think that, you know, the animal saw, but hey, there's a youngster, let's help it out. I'm sure.
when you've been out with the clients for some time, do they ever say, okay, well, we've got to go back to the real world now? Is that something which you hear every now and then?
Yes, it is.
What's
And on trails, so on a primitive or wilderness trail, it's a bit of a hard thing for them to do. They always go, tomorrow I've got to go back to the real world. And it's like, aren't we actually part of the real world?
Yeah, I was wondering, are they missing the point?
Yeah. Aren't we part of the real world? And then they go, well, yeah, but this is not my world. I said, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not part of the world and the real world, because this is real. You're here now.
In a lot of ways, it's more real.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like,
it's more real.
this is the essence of life right now.
Absolutely. 100%. And when people get that and they connect with that, then they understand. And then, I won't say they understand the meaning of life, but they understand that wilderness and these wilderness areas are extremely important to their soul. And they need these areas to be able to connect and to be able to come to unload and just go, we can breathe again.
Are you a spiritual man?
I think so. But I think nature and wilderness is kind of my spirit. That's where I am. There's stuff out there that happens that I don't understand how it happens. I just know it happens, and it's there.
Mm.
There's no problem with it being there.
How would you say nature and wilderness has impacted on your sense of self-identity?
It's given me a self-identity, absolutely. It has made me what I am, and with that is my identity. If I didn't have this, I don't know where I'd be, and I don't know what I would be.
Have you ever thought about how your life would have unfolded if the doctors had been correct all those years ago, and that you would never have been able to walk properly again?
I've thought about it, but I've never harped on it for simply because it isn't. So I've just thought, well, it's not something I had to think about because it never really happened.
Yeah.
If it was like that, I would have dealt with it, and I'm positive with my nature and my positive outlook on life that I still would have been in nature, but just in a different way, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been any less of a person. I would have just been a different person.
Okay, sure. What's birding?
What's birding?
Yeah, that is the verb, isn't it? To bird, I bird.
Birding is getting out there and looking at birds and identifying birds and all of that. I'm a birder, means that I enjoy birds. I go out there and I go birding. So birding is actually getting out there and doing the actual deed of identifying the birds. Being a birder is being somebody who enjoys the birds and enjoys getting out there and doing all of that. I'm lucky where, that's part of nature, and that's a big part of why I'm out here today. Because my father, he's a degreed ornithologist, and in doing bird projects when I was a kid, I always went out with him to these bush wild environments and everything. From when I was a youngster in a wheelchair in plaster of Paris, we always used to be in the bush looking at birds, doing his bird surveys and all of that. And I think through osmosis, that's
and you've identified over 800 birds, I read. Is that right?
Yeah, well, in the birding world, you have your lists. So you have people who are listers, and I suppose I'm one of them as well, although I'm not a twitcher, and I'm not saying that in any derogatory sense. I'm not a person who goes out chasing the numbers to see how many birds I can get. I just happen to be in a very fortunate position in being a specialist bird guide, working for my father at Lawson's Birding, and I used to take international people on birding tours throughout southern Africa and Africa to see birds. So obviously through that you get to see a lot of different species of birds, and my number just got really big.
Does that information filter its way back into the scientific community in terms of locations? And
it does now.
Yeah.
It does now, because there's a phenomenal atlasing project run by the Animal Demographic Unit in Cape Town, and they have got this bird atlasing project that they do where citizen scientists like myself, and there's hundreds of them out there, go out and we make bird lists according to their scientific program, and that information we send back to the University of Cape Town, and it gets captured on the database, and all that information is used in all the distribution maps on birds that are found in all the books and the apps and everything like that.
Now I'm going to ask you about something I mentioned at the very, very start. You walked from Cape to Cairo.
Yeah.
What compelled you to do that?
A moment of insanity.
Okay. Turned out to be a long moment.
Yeah. The moment was what triggered the long walk.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, it was something, it was something when I was sitting down in Gough Island. looking out over this amazing, I wouldn't say landscape, there was a bit of land in front of us, cliffs, looking out at this ocean that just carries on forever. And it was coming to the end of our expedition date, and we were kind of waiting for the ship to pop up over the horizon. What are we going to do? And I said, I don't know how I'm going to fit back into society, so I'm going to have to do something that will inspire me to actually maybe try connect again. And I thought, well, I want to do something pretty rad, and wasn't too sure what it was. And I was looking at the map of Africa, and we had a big, huge map out there on the table, and we were looking at the map of Africa, and the guy said, why don't you drive it in a Land Rover? I said, well, Land Rover will probably break down. They said, well, go by motorbike. I said, well, lots of people do that. So go by bicycle. I said, no, tons of people do that. And I said, well, there's only one option to do. And I said, well, yeah, that's going to be to walk it. So, yeah, I'll do it one day. And it was only 5-6 years later that we decided, okay, well, let's go for it. And yeah, we did it on a shoestring, but yeah, it was.
So you and
there were two other chaps
yep.
who walked the South African section, and then one of the chaps, he fell off, or not fell off, he climbed off the bus when we got to Bite Bridge, and another guy who had met us on the route, he joined us at Bite Bridge, and the three of us walked north. So there were always only 3 people walking.
Okay. Now I had a quick check of the map before we sat down, and there are a few countries up the northern part that you kind of would want to circumvent.
Yeah.
But you must have did you get any scrapes?
Yeah, unfortunately we did have a few, but not nearly as many as people would think, and not as many as we thought would happen, or me. I can't speak for the other guys, but I thought there would be significantly more hardships along the way in terms of conflicts and scrapes and stuff like that, but surprisingly not many. I mean, we got mugged a few times, we got robbed by Somali bandits in desert in northern Kenya. Yeah, that was about it. But injury and disease, sicknesses, that was the hardest thing. Malaria was a big one, but also just contaminated water. Dysentery, giardia, those things. Ooh, hectic.
How long did it take?
22 months.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
But
so there was an elephant born in the time that we walked. Yeah.
Oh. Bruce, look, this has been a wonderful chat. I want to finish off with a quote which I found. It was from Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1964 when he wrote or signed the Wilderness Act, which I guess pertains to America. But he said, if future generations are to remember us with gratitude rather than contempt, we must leave them something more than the miracles of technology. We must leave them a glimpse of the world as it was in the beginning, not just after we got through with it. How do you relate to that?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think if we can remove ourselves from technology and get out into nature, the world might have a chance of survival. And if we preserve and conserve these wilderness areas, future generations, my children, my children's children, will be able to experience in some ways what I've experienced as well. They're going to be different because of a different time, but it will be in our way. So yeah, very wise man, and thank you to people like that.
And thank you too, Bruce, for joining me on Tales Less Told.
Thank you very much. It's been a blast.
Cheers.
Thank you.